Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, let's talk about how your parents could be holding you back in education or in work. So, your parents, just to let you know, for the most part, your parents want the absolute best for you. The caveat is that they may not know always what's best, and also if they have not had the chance to mature and to heal from whatever pasts they've had, they are not going to help you to mature either, or to actually set you up for what they think is best. And this is especially true if you come from different backgrounds, and also if you come from different cultures and just different times in life, because the way to get a job back in the 60s in the United States is not the same way to get a job now in the 2020s, and still the United States, right? So some things that I had noticed, especially when it came from Filipino culture, where nursing is like the thing, because that's what gets you out of poverty, that's what gets you into the United States, where there is the ability to provide for your family, right? Now, that my family were all teachers in the Philippines, and so even still here in the US, I still have several family members that pursued nursing, and most Filipinos do pursue nursing. And even if I wanted to pursue pre-med and like a doctor, like medical doctor or DO type of path, my parents were still like, oh, you should do nursing. You should do nursing. There was even a woman who was the president of a community college, and she was a doctor, PhD in English, and her job as she's a president of a community college. Her dad still told her, like, oh, anak, do you wanna do nursing? It makes good money. And she's like, Dad, I'm a doctor already. And so there's a huge difference when it comes to culture, and that's just never gonna translate over well. And sometimes, like, it can be pretty violent, and I mean violent in words, and just like very strong arguments when your parents want what's absolutely best for you. They don't communicate it that well sometimes. And so one of these ways that your parents could hold you back, and this is how my parents almost held me back, was by telling me, finish up college before doing an internship. Now, in the United States, as an engineering student, that does not work. You have greater chances of becoming an intern or going to a co-op in your sophomore, junior, senior years, like in between those years. And it is so like from sophomore to junior year, summertime, or junior to senior year, or you take a year off and go to a co-op, and that makes you far more employable. Now, your goal is to graduate, right? But the thing that engineering school tells you here in the States is that, yeah, you want to graduate, but you need to be employable. And the only way that you're going to be employable for engineering students is to look like you've got experience, and to show that you are competent, not just to be an academic that knows how to take tests and knows how to study well, but an academic that can use that brain and actually solve problems. You have to be able to solve things when Chegg is not around. And if you want to watch my previous video, I have a lot of issues with Chegg. They ruined my life. Not because I bought them, but because everybody else around me bought it. But that's another video. Now, you need to show your competence as an engineer by showing that you actually know how to be in the workplace, that you actually know how to solve problems, and you know how to work with people who are not engineers either. Like, you're going to have to work with your sales team, and many engineers now do go into sales because you are like the expert on the product, and you're able to sell to people who will understand all of the science and math lingo that you do. And then, so you'll have to work with sales, you're going to have to work with the receiving team, the materials team, you're going to have to work with HR, you're going to have to work with production floor, right? Especially in a manufacturing environment, you're going to have to work with advertising, with marketing, and these are not things that your university can pack into 5 years of school. Your university has to focus on giving you the most rigorous part, which is the mathematics, which is giving you odd shapes to deal with fluid flow, just odd structures, and giving you really difficult math so that you know how to persevere. The thing that your school has to teach you is how to persevere and how to solve problems. Now, the co-op or the internship will teach you how to solve those problems in real life, because I mean, whenever I took organic chemistry, I learned a whole list of things, of reactions to use in order to get something from like an ethyl molecule plus a toluene to like a hormone looking type of molecule. And for those of you who don't understand, like toluene is like a hexagon. Not that's really simple. It's a very simple form, but a hormone has that hexagon and then a pentagon next to it, and then like all sorts of other things. But like I learned all sorts of reactions to get something from point A to point B, and in between point A and point B there was like 6 different steps. That's what I learned in organic chemistry. Then I go to the real world and I work, and I come to find out that everything that I learned in organic chemistry is banned at my workplace. So now what do I do? You see what I mean? Like an ozonolysis reaction is almost, it's kind of impossible because you can't just like buy ozone in a jar. You actually have to get an ozonator, and it's really rare. And it's like people are like, wait, have you seen the ozonator? And it's like, oh yeah, it's stuck behind that oscilloscope from 1987 that nobody's used because nobody uses the ozonator. But an ozonolysis reaction is something that you learn in chemistry. So whenever it comes to just like your actual work experience, going to school alone is not going to help you. Now, here's the other thing. The other difference that's going to cause a lot of tension is if your parents went through a different career path or a different degree than you are going through. So my parents are artsy, and my mom did communications and I wanted to do engineering. So I'm really like an artsy person who is trying to be an engineer. This is something that I also had to tell one of my friends who was getting married, and she was saying that her mother-in-law, while she was still like engaged to her fiance, her future mother-in-law at that point, was just so nitpicky with everything. And I already can tell, just because I've interacted with people and I've been a teacher, that like that kind of behavior comes from someone who majored in humanities, because for a humanities person to be competitive in school, they have to be perfect. They have to be absolutely perfect. And what I mean by that is like, it's not like in engineering or math where you get the right answer and there's one right answer most of the time, right? That's another way of being perfect. But for you to be a successful person in humanities, you've got to have everything polished. You have your senses, your sensories like all heightened, and it's very sensitive to like every movement of your professor. And that in my point of view, that's what it's like. And so you do all those flourishes. You have to be perfect in the way that you format everything, because when you're giving your opinion and you're afraid that your teacher might like disagree with you, you've got to present your opinion perfectly. And this is how they approach problem solving in the real world. And then they see you, an engineer, who's like, it passes, it's good. And they're like, what do you mean it passes? What do you mean D- passes? Like that's terrible. I failed. And I'm like, no. If it passes, it passes, and I need to move on, because I'm not going to be getting anything above a 33% efficiency. And the highest score in an engineering school world, where it's like the highest score could be a 32%, and that's already highballing it. That would make that would probably kill a non-STEM student just from the stress alone, if they tried all their hardest and they only got a 33%. And then for us in engineering school, like, you try more than your hardest and you still end up with a 16% on your exam. Like, that's how our world works. So with us, we're like, okay, it passes, it moves on. And you're okay with things not being perfect, but moving on, because that's just what your time constraints are. And that kind of attack on the real world, where like, and I've seen this all the time in engineering, where it's like, it's with intolerance, it can go on. And that's not the way that you attack things. Attack problems with a humanities side. Now, if any of you want to argue with me, my comment section is open. And then also, this is something that a chemical engineering friend of mine said while we were studying, is that his dad, or I think his stepdad, had studied political science in school and was saying that, oh, you're lazy because you're not finishing school up in 3 years. I finished school up in 3 years, and I'm like, wow. For one thing, it's really difficult to finish up school in 3 years as an engineering student when there are no chemical engineering professors to begin with. Now, what I mean by almost no chemical engineering professors to begin with, it's the fact that people who go through chemical engineering, or just engineering in general, don't usually go through engineering to become professors. They usually go through engineering to become an engineer and make money, and make that engineering money and not that teacher salary. So, with the scarcity of STEM professors, especially in the higher level classes, in engineering and in chemical engineering in particular, because how many engineers do you know go through organic chemistry for fun, right? So you still have like a lower amount of people, or a lower number of people who are teaching organic chemistry in the first place, and an even lower number of people who can teach the higher levels of chemical engineering. You usually don't get lifetime academics out of engineering. You'll get lifetime academics out of humanities people, and so they have an overabundance of people trying to become professors. I don't know if overabundance is the right word to use here, but it's definitely more than people who go through STEM. And so for my friend's stepdad to make that sort of like laziness accusation that, you know, you're lazy because you're not finishing up school, you should just work harder. It's like, I'm working as hard as I can. You had time to go out to the bars, you had time to go to the movies. I have no time to do anything. I don't even have time to blink in class. And that's usually how it's like in not just engineering, but like in organic chemistry. You blink in class, you are behind. You were like miles behind, and it feels like hell because it's supposed to burn, and it's supposed to burn off all the dross, all of like the people who aren't really serious about it, and they're just like, oh, I want to be a doctor because it makes money and I like to help people. That's who they're trying to burn off of the class. They want the people who are serious about this, because organic chemistry is not something to be messed with. So, yeah, like just having that difference in career and difference in degree is going to put on a lot of tension, and you're not going to see, you can see that there's a lot of humanities people that have summer internships available where it's just the summertime. Engineering co-ops take a year. Because, like, and this is something I noticed more in the South, is that they value co-ops. Something I had noticed, at least in the West Coast, was that we had a lot more summer internships because like the big name schools were just like available during the summer, and our students were off during the summer. And so but like in the South, whenever it was like a co-op, people like the people in charge of the co-op felt like they could really give their students there that were working a really good education on how the world works. So, you know, at the expense of delaying your graduation, you become more employable. And that does not sound like a good deal to many people who are in humanities classes. So if you've got this divide between you and your parents because they did something else and you're doing something different from what they were doing, you have to make the right decision based on the most relevant information, what your teachers and what your professors and what the professionals in your field are saying. And if your parent is not a professional in your field and is not a professor in your field, they really are not an authority to speak on this type of thing. There are several things that are universal when it comes to business interaction, when it comes to sales, and just human interaction and working in general. But if they're trying to impose something where they're really not someone who can impose an opinion on it, you really cannot be listening to them, and that is a hard truth that you're going to have to accept. And if they forbid you to do it, just work around it. Like, you may just have to listen and just work at the mall and work retail. But especially when it's like a great opportunity, take Hugh Jackman's example. He didn't tell his wife about his X-Man role. or the X-Men, sorry, the X-Men role. He didn't tell his wife that he got Wolverine. And guess what? He's Wolverine. You might need to do the same. So that's one way. That's one way that your parents could be holding you back. So anyway, I know I've been ranting for a little bit and it's almost 16 minutes, so I should probably wrap it up. I'll make another video. Thank you for everyone who commented on my last video. Those were really encouraging. I think I'll be making these videos all the time. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe. And give me all your comments on how your parents had stifled you from becoming, from gaining opportunities or grabbing onto opportunities that you knew were good for you, but because you didn't want to disappoint them, or it's just a different viewpoint between you guys. Let me know on that. Okay, I will see you in my next video. Bye!